All right, so we're going to do something different. I'm going to talk to you about a business topic and build a website. I thought it might be a fun way to do it. All right, so when you do what I do, you end up doing far more than just build websites. I mean, building websites is where I started like 24 years ago. But today that's grown into far more than that. Most of my conversations with clients go far deeper into the operations, business growth, positioning, the customer experience, sales processes, their internal systems, very often the actual overall direction of the company. It's very rarely just somebody saying, crank out a website for me. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes they want a website that brings in more customers, and that's what they want. Sometimes they need an operational system that helps run their business. That might be a CRM or a vehicle intake system, some kind of scheduling or booking platform, quoting or invoicing system that keeps that keeps track of things better than the third-party systems out there, or some custom combination of all the above that makes sense for their particular business. And we build all of that. And because of that, I get a pretty close look at how different business owners actually think. And I have clients that I almost never hear from. We build a thing for them, they use it, they love it, it works, and they go run their business. The only time I actually get a call or a text from them is when something major has happened with the business and something has genuinely changed. And I have quite a few clients like that. They're the if it ain't broke, don't fix it type guys, right? And I value those clients. They're stable, decisive. They're not constantly trying to create chaos where there doesn't need to be chaos. But with that said, they're not as much fun, if I'm being honest. Then we have the clients who tinker. They're always looking at the business, looking at the system, asking what could be better, cleaner, faster, or whether this is really the most optimal way of doing a thing. And those clients are actually a little bit more naturally aligned with the way I think myself, because I'm pretty much the same way. I can be quite happy with something and still know it can be better. Most of the time, I can recognize that something is working well and see the weak points and leave it alone until I figure out how to solve those weak points. I think all those mindsets are actually valuable in their own right. I mean, businesses should improve. Systems should evolve, products should get better, and processes should get cleaner. There's also a trap in that mindset. There's a point where improvement turns into change for the sake of change. I had a conversation with a great client of mine the other day. He's been a client for years, and he wanted to make a fairly significant change to something. And this happens pretty frequently. Typically, the conversation will start with something like, I think we should, I think we need to change this, I think customers will respond better to that. And perhaps they're right. That's an important thing to say. Because I'm not saying that instinct has no value. Not at all. Business owners know their business. They see things that may not immediately show up in data. They've got experience, they understand patterns they see inside their business, and sometimes they know something's wrong before they can fully articulate it. But I think can be dangerous when it becomes the entire reason for making the change. Because I think isn't a defined problem. It's not a diagnosis. And on its own, it's usually not enough to justify making a major business decision. Very often, they haven't asked one of the most important questions you should ask before you start making changes. What problem are we actually solving? Because wanting to change something isn't the same as solving a problem. There are three kind of distinct parts to this. First, there's assess what is happening. What are we seeing? What's changed? What isn't working? What result are we getting that we don't want? Second, there's for lack of a better term, naming that problem. And that's a bit different. Just saying I don't like this isn't naming the problem. Saying the product isn't selling still isn't the problem. Why isn't it selling? Is the price wrong? Are we targeting the wrong customer? Do people even know it exists? Is the sales team explaining it properly? Is it being offered to the wrong point in the customer journey? Then the third part is figuring out where the problem actually lives within the larger system. And that's the hardest part. That's the most important part. Let me give you an example. We may launch a new web page for a client for a new service. We look at data and we see that it's number one on Google for 42 different keywords in all the towns that it's supposed to be number one for. It had 4,000 impressions last month, but only got 22 clicks to the site. That's a massively low performer. Now, somebody might immediately say, okay, so the landing page isn't working. We need to change the landing page, right? But that'd be completely wrong. If you had 4,000 impressions and only 22 clicks from Google, then nobody's ever seeing the landing page. So the landing page isn't the problem. The problem is happening earlier in that customer journey. When you search for something on Google, you see the title, the little description underneath it, the website address, and sometimes the favicon or the little icon beside it. That information is what helps somebody decide whether they're going to click or not. That's your metadata. It could be that the title's wrong, the description isn't compelling, the favicon looks amateur or untrustworthy, or the wording just doesn't match what that person is actually searching for. Something in that piece is missing. And without looking at the data, you could simply say, we're number one on Google, but people aren't buying. Let's redesign the landing page. But the reality is almost nobody's seeing the landing page, so you don't need to redesign it because that's not the problem. You could completely redesign it and it wouldn't matter. The problem is between appearing in search results and getting the person to click. Now, let's say if you had 4,000 impressions and 1,800 clicks, but nobody was converting. At that point, you might say, okay, something on this landing page isn't working. And you'd be correct. But even then, you've still got to go deeper. Let's say you have 4 other products or services with similarly designed landing pages, and those other 4 are performing exceptionally well, but this one isn't. Now you got to figure out what's different about this page compared to those pages. You don't immediately redesign the entire thing. You've got to figure out what's different. Is it the offer, the price, the language, the target audience? Or is there something there that people just don't understand? Then you change something. A thing, typically. Like one thing. Test it, track it, monitor what happens, and try to understand what that change did to the bigger picture. And that's where a lot of business owners fall short. They'll launch something, it's live, it's doing its thing, but it's not working as fast as they want to, so they reconfigure the whole thing. They change the style of the site, the colors, the design, the content, the language, the pricing, and then sometimes it works. Suddenly they're off to the races. But why? What actually changed? What fixed it? You may think, well, who cares? It's working. No, that's terrible. This is a huge problem because you changed a whole bunch of things and got a result, but you've got no idea which thing actually moved the needle. So the next time you try to improve it, you do the same thing again. You reconfigure everything, but this time you break the thing that actually worked because you don't know what worked. So you remove or damage it, and now you lose all your sales because you made the wrong change. This is where patience comes into play. I'm not especially strong in the patience department myself. I want to know. I want to fix the thing. I want to make it better. But sometimes you got to slow down long enough to make a change, watch what happens, and understand what that change actually did, if it did anything at all. There are other ways to mitigate this. For example, in our world, we may create 40 web pages with different variations of language, structure, offers, positioning, and they all rank on Google just fine. But then we get to test the delivery. We get to see which versions people click, which ones they stay on, which ones generate the calls or leads, and which ones actually produce customers. And that gives us something real to work from. But regardless of what kind of business you're in, before you change a product or price or service or system or direction of your entire company, slow down and ask yourself, what problem am I actually solving? And what evidence tells me that it's a problem, and where does that problem live? Because once you can clearly articulate the problem, figuring out how to solve it is a hell of a lot easier. All right, now if you've made it with me through this entire thing, you've watched me build an entire website. I can't lie to you. What you just saw wasn't real. I did build the page, but my system built it. And then I took the code, dropped it into Visual Studios, backspaced it, reversed the video, typed out about 30 seconds worth of actual code, oversampled the clicks in there, and made for a video. It is cool to see, but it's not how we build websites anymore. That is how I built websites for 15 or 18 something years until I discovered, that's a rabbit hole for another day, because we were doing generated websites before AI actually came into play. So if you actually want to know how we did that back in 2017, 2018, before AI, comment and I'll share some old school secrets to the trade. You guys have a good one.